Cat Days by Griffin Rose on AO3. Episode 4, Chapter 1. Shouta spent a few days researching cat behaviors around Quirks, but he couldn't find anything that would explain Roman's reaction on New Year's, or his behavior after that either. He made a mess of his cat food the next day, smithering it over the table with his nose before Shouta caught him. He started stealing pens every chance he had, carrying them around in his mouth and walking around the apartment like he was looking for something. He even tried to type on Shota's computer one day while Shouta was working, eyeing the keyboard and carefully pawing at them. It took a month for him to realize what all of this together looked like. And really, he only figured it out because Ramen smeared his food again, and this time there was definitely a letter on the table. "Are you trying to tell me something?" Shouta said, his hand still outstretched to yank Yamen off the table. Ramen looked at him and nodded. "Holy shit, you really do understand me." Ramen nodded again. "What the hell?" Ramen went back to smearing his food over the table. He already had a Q and was adding a U. And one by one, he spelled out the word Quirk. Shouta had to sit down. His cat knew how to read and write. What the hell? Could he do this the whole time? Was that why he was so adamant about eating at the table? And why he'd lost his mind anytime people food was within reach? And what about a quirk? "Are you under a quirk right now?" Ramen nodded and sat on the table looking at him expectantly. Oh, New Year's made sense. He found out Shouta could erase quirks, and he'd been trying to get him to use it on him. Shouta took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and then activated his quirk. He wasn't sure what he'd expected, but watching his cat morph into a human child had not been on the list. He swore again and jumped back, knocking his chair over. The kid lost his balance on the table and toppled on the floor. He still had clothes, thank God, and his curly green hair flopped into his eyes. There was still cat food smeared over his face. The kid scrambled to right himself on the floor, crouching like he was still a cat. Shouta took a deep breath. "You're Izuku Midoriya." He recognized him, of course. The open investigation wasn't that old. And God, no wonder Ramen had freaked out over watching the news the first day. The kid's quirk was shapeshifting. How had Shouta not put it together before now? Okay, to be fair, no one would have expected the stray cat they found to be a missing kid, even knowing that. And no one had said shapeshifting included animals. The kid nodded and rubbed the cat food off his face. "I got stuck." His voice was quiet. Shouta crouched down beside him to hear better. "Changing back is always hard, but this time I couldn't do it at all." No doubt all the stress from the fire affected his quirk. Shouta took a deep breath. "Okay." The kid, Izuku, winced. "I'm sorry I couldn't figure out how to tell you." His eyes watered. "Don't apologize. It wasn't your fault. You didn't ask to be kidnapped by a stranger." This was going to be a nightmare to figure out. He was going to have to bring the kid to the station and explain what happened, and hopefully they wouldn't actually charge him with kidnapping. Wincing, Izuku hugged his knees. "I kind of did. I don't know what else to do, and I was scared, and then you were there." Tears finally poured over his cheeks. "And then I saw Mom didn't make it." Ah, that would certainly mess up a little kid. No wonder he'd been stuck as a cat. And he was still crying. Right. Shouta should probably do something about that. He put a hand on the kid's head. "It's gonna be alright." Izuku shook his head, burying his face in his knees. "She's gone. I was supposed to find help, but I couldn't, and she's gone." "It's not your fault," Shouta said. "You did everything you could." Izuku sobbed harder, and then threw himself at Shouta, climbing into his lap and clutching the front of his shirt. The sudden weight almost knocked Shouta over, but he figured it out. It was weird to him having a kid trust him so easily, but looking at it from Izuku's point of view, it wasn't any different from the last 3 months. Izuku was just human now. Shouta was still hesitant to put his hands on the kid. Eventually they settled on Izuku's back, rubbing little circles. Izuku cried for a while. This was probably the first time he'd been able to grieve his mother, and what happened. Now that he was human again, he would have to face reality, and how different everything would be for him. Once he was cried out, Shouta sent him to take a shower, pulling out the smallest clothes he owned for Izuku to change into afterwards. Then, Shouta promptly collapsed on his couch and questioned his life. His cat was actually a human kid. Why did these things always happen to him? He pulled out his phone to text Hisashi while he waited for Izuku in the shower. Insomniac. I found out why my cat's so weird. Loud man. Really? Wait, oh no, did something happen to little Ramen? Insomnia. He's not a cat. Loud man. What the hell do you mean he's not a cat? Sho, you can't just say that and then not explain it. Insomniac. He's a kid. A human kid. Shapeshifting quirk. He got stuck as a cat. Loudman. What? Your cat is a human child. That is what you're telling me right now? Insomniac. Yup. Does it count as kidnapping if he was a cat this whole time? Loudman. Shit. I don't know. Was I abetting a criminal this whole time? Insomniac. If I go down, I'm taking you with me. Loudman. Okay. Let's be reasonable here. I'm sure when you explain the situation, they'll understand. But holy shit, so many things make sense now. Insomniac. I have a missing kid in my apartment. Loudman. At least we know he's being taken care of. That was some kind of consolation, Shouta allowed. Other than the few days between the fire and when Shouta found him, Izuku had been here. He hadn't been getting tortured somewhere or sold in any kind of trafficking ring. Izuku came paddling down the hallway, making a kneel noise to get his attention. The clothes Shouta loaned him were laughably oversized, even though they were the smallest he had. The shirt slipped entirely off his shoulder and hung to his knees, which made up for the fact that the shorts wouldn't stay on no matter what they tried. Shouta didn't even have a belt small enough for him. Hey, sorry about the clothes. We could stop for some that fit on the way to the station. Izuku tilted his head. Station? Yeah, the police station. I have to report that you're not missing. Oh. He chewed on his lip, fiddling with his shirt. Something wrong? Shouta asked. He made a little keen sound before coming over and scrambling into Shota's lap again. Are they gonna make me live with Dad? Shouta tried not to awkwardly panic. Clearly, some habits of being a cat for 3 months were carrying over, and it wasn't like Izuku had any idea what it looked like that a little kid was crawling over a grown man's lap that he wasn't related to. He forced himself to focus on Izuku's question. He hadn't kept up with the case, so he didn't know if Hisashi Midoriya had been located and questioned about the fire. Do you not want to live with him? He doesn't like me very much. From the way Izuku trembled against him, clutching at Shota's shirt, Shouta was going to guess that was an understatement. Did he start the fire that night? Shouta asked. Izuku nodded. He was mad. He yelled at Mom a lot. Mom tried to make him leave, and then she said if he wouldn't go, we would. But then the fire... Shouta held him tighter when the crying started again. He'd been afraid that this was how the story would go. Typical domestic violence. It didn't start out bad, but then temper flared and things escalated. Izuku calmed down much faster, but tears continued rolling down his face. If I change back into a cat, could I stay here with you? Something in Shota's chest physically ached at the question. He never wanted to be a dad. He didn't know what he would do with kids. And hero work, especially underground hero work, didn't lend itself to a good parenting habits. Don't you want to see your friends again? You can't be a cat forever. You're human. His little hands clutched at Shota's shirt. What if I'm a better cat, though? No one was angry when I was a cat. but he had a broken rib. He was starting to feel he had a broken rib. I'm sure you're a wonderful kid. But you still don't want me, Izuku said, letting go of Shota's shirt. Shouta held him tighter. Izuku, I just want you to have the best life you can. I don't know if that's with me. You've seen my work hours. I'm gone all night, and you need someone who's here. Can't we try? Izuku's lower lip trembled. You were so nice to me when I was a cat. Never in his life did he think he'd have a kid begging to stay with him. I don't know, Izuku. I don't even have a spare bedroom here. I don't need a bedroom. I'll sleep on the couch. Shouta smiled and sighed, shaking his head. You deserve a bedroom, someplace you could keep all your stuff and do your homework. Which reminded him that Izuku had missed 3 months of school now. That couldn't be good. He wanted to make the kid happy. He really did. God knew the kid deserved the world right now. He just really didn't think he was the best person qualified to give it to him. He didn't know the first thing about raising a kid. Look, let's take this one step at a time, okay? Let's get you some more clothes that fit, and then tell the police that you're okay. They'll take Izuku from him as soon as he explained what happened, and Izuku would be placed with a foster home. Even if Shouta was completely committed to keeping him, Izuku would have to stay in a home while the paperwork processed. Izuku mumbled a quiet okay, and got down from his lap. The shopping trip was not one of Shota's most favorite memories in the world. Izuku didn't have shoes, so he had to carry him. They bunched the collar up behind his neck and tied it with a spare hair tie so it wouldn't slide off his shoulder. And they gave up on the shorts. The shirt was long enough, it kind of acted like a dress. They made it to the store half an hour before they closed, and the employees gave him nasty looks. He ignored their hostile and asked for help picking out some outfits and shoes for him. And then he tried to put Izuku down so he could browse around and find what he liked. Izuku clung to his side and tried very hard to fuse to him. He didn't know what the staff thought of it, but they cooed over Izuku and brought a few shirts for him to judge. He shyly picked out a few that he liked, and then asked if they had anything with All Might on it. Shouta should have known the kid would be a fan. The staff brought him some new choices, and they picked out some stuff that he liked. They stayed past closing, and Shouta apologized for taking their time, but it was kind of an emergency situation. The staff waved him off, and let him take Izuku to the changing room to put some of the clothes on before they left. He came out in an All Might shirt and bright red shoes, and he immediately reached for Shota's hand when he was done. Leaving the staff, waved goodbye, and told them to come back any time. Izuku beamed and waved back. His ribs were doing that painful thing again. They needed to stop doing that. He was 23 and lived in a one-bedroom apartment. He could barely take care of himself. He couldn't raise an entire person. Their next stop was the police station, and Izuku tried to fuse with the site again while Shouta told the front desk why they were there. It was a long night from there. A detective came to speak with Izuku, and Shouta had to file several different reports on how the kid came to his care. There was a sticky moment at one point where the detective was suspicious of Shota's motives, but Izuku hissed and insisted Shouta hadn't known, and he shouldn't be in trouble. Shouta learned that Hisashi Midoriya had been found and tried. He was currently behind bars for manslaughter, right where he belonged. The worst part of the evening was when an officer came by to take Izuku to a group home. The officer was nice, a young woman in her mid-20s. She even offered Izuku a stuffed animal to hold on to. He squeezed it between his body and showed his hip. "We have a nice family who wants to meet you," the officer said, crouching down at Izuku's level. For an 8-year-old, he was really small. Shouta had concerns about that, but he couldn't do anything right now. "I want to stay with Shouta," Izuku insisted. "He's a hero. He's good." The officer glanced at Shouta. "No one is saying he isn't. I'm sure Mr. Aizawa is a very good person, but we want to check his home and make sure you'll be well taken care for there." Izuku clutched to him harder. Shouta put a hand in his head, prompting Izuku to look up at him, and then he kneeled down too. "Look, Izuku, I think you should go meet this family. You haven't seen anyone besides me and Hisashi for the last few months, so you should take this chance to be around other people. I'll check in with you in a few days, and if you still want to stay with me, we could talk about it then, okay?" His bottom lip quivered, but he agreed and finally let go of Shouta. watching him walk out of the station without him was a lot harder than it should have been. The weird pain in his chest persisted all the way back home, and only increased when he climbed into bed and looked for a fur ball that wasn't there. He didn't sleep well. No, they got separated. Ah! Okay, I guess, I mean, it makes sense. In all the other fanfictions where Izuku just gets to stay with Aizawa and Hisashi and shit like that, it's because they already have their fostering license. In this case, Shouta doesn't have his fostering license. So, yeah. Fuck. Okay, well, let's hope that nothing happens in the foster system with Izuku while he's still getting sorted with getting into being adopted by Shouta and or Hisashi. Because, you know, in other ones, we always have the big dilemma that, you know, Izuku's quirkless and they don't get treated properly there. But in this case, Izuku isn't quirkless, and he could very well be treated okay. He does have a shape-shifting quirk, which could pose some... I mean, some people might be discriminatory, but, like, I don't think they're going to be outright bad, you know? You know, it's worrisome, but it's not worrisome, you know? Okay. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.